All right. Good morning, everyone. Get some video. There we go. How about that? Let's see. Here we go. Oh, all right. So good morning, everyone. Welcome to our webinar today on security and compliance with Azure. As you can see, I'm trying to do my best here. My mask. I actually wore this today, even though, of course, I don't need it in this particular room with no one here. But everybody that's on the call today, webinar today, if you have an interest in this, go ahead and put it in the chat session at the end, and we'll make sure and send one out to you. There you go. All right. Oh, so you can breathe better now. All right. I hope everyone's doing well, being safe wherever you are in the country. This is our let's see, fourth of four in a series of webinar series on Azure. If you missed any of the first three, we have them available for replay on our website. There was Azure 101, Azure Cost Management, and Azure migration to data centers. So any of those, if you have an interest in, if you missed those, they're definitely available on our website. Today, we're going to talk about security and compliance. It is probably the #1 topic. I know we saved it for last, but probably going back even 5+ years ago when we were doing Office 365 lunch and learns, it was always the top question that came up. You know, how secure is Azure? What type of compliance is available? And even though those questions were answered quite easily 4 and 5 years ago, you can only imagine how far it's progressed since then, including, Department of Defense and a lot of things that we'll talk about today. So security and compliance, #1 topic, #1 issue. Today, what we're going to do is we are going to do this one here. Today, it's going to be kind of a question and answer. So anyone that is listening today live, go ahead and type in some of your questions along the way. We'll do our best to answer them. Some of them will probably be answered by the topics we have. So as you can see for our agenda, we've got some prepared questions that we'll go through, but definitely bring in the ones that you have as well. I think in the lower right-ish, depending on where your control center comes up, is where you can type in those questions, and I'll be monitoring those along the way. Some of the areas that we'll talk about are how to use multi-layered built-in security with Azure, what's my Azure Secure Score, and some recommendations that can come out of that. Can Azure Security Center extend the management to on-premise systems? And how can I ensure compliance in the cloud governance capabilities built into Azure? So those are the areas that we're going to cover today. Let's see, I'm actually going to, well, no, we'll go ahead and do this first. So just real quick on who is Big Green IT. We're headquartered in near Sacramento, California, with offices in San Diego and Los Angeles. We are a gold platform partner for Microsoft. We're a direct partner with Microsoft. We're also part of their data center optimization, so we have direct access to level 3, level 4 engineers within Microsoft. So I think before we get started, I want to make sure we put together, we have a poll question, and I'm going to try to push all the right buttons and get that out here to you guys, and just give us a better idea of who. Let's see, there's a nice button here called launch. Okay. The common compliance against security. Okay, here we go. Wait, are we going to do 2 questions, I guess?
Yeah, we have 2 questions today.
We have
there
2. Okay.
First one's up. Can you see it?
I hope that everyone can. I see that some people are responding, so I'm going to take that as a yes. It says, are you using Azure Security or Compliance? And right now, most of the answers are no. There's actually about a 3 to 1. That's perfect. That means we're going to share some great information with folks that they may not already know. I'm going to close this one now, and if you guys will answer the second question. Here we go. And Wade, if you can read that one off, it's actually shortened for me, so I don't see the entire
question. There isn't a poll question. Up there we go. Now there is.
Yeah.
There we go.
So we're asking, curious if you're, for those who said yes, do you, or not if you said yes, but does your company have to follow any common compliance standards out there? And the common ones are for healthcare, HIPAA, Global Data Protection Privacy Act, similar to California Consumer Privacy Act, GDPR, NIST 800 or whatever. We have a lot of customers that are under some sort of compliance standards. So,
and it looks
not
like
surprised to see a 3 to 4 ratio. Yeah.
Yeah, about 3 to 1 that definitely are under some type of compliance. Perfect. Then you're in the right spot for today's webinar. So let me close these. Excellent. Gives us some information to go on there. Okay, so I'd like to first introduce our subject matter expert. This is Wade Walker, who is Big Green IT Director of Cloud Services. Once again, I encourage you to ask questions. Nice mask. Encourage everyone to ask questions along the way, but we'll go ahead and get it started with some of our prepared questions. You will get copies of all these slides, so go ahead and take notes if you would like, especially if it's something that's pertinent to your company or a question you want to ask or so forth. But know that we will send out an email tomorrow, a follow-up that will have a link to the presentation. So Wade, are you all set to go?
I'm all set to go.
Excellent. Okay. Let's go here. Let me push all the right buttons. And our first, okay, so this actually isn't a first question. This is perfect. I actually asked Wade to put in a slide that talks what's about relativeness today with cyber and security. And, you know, the biggest thing we all have going on is COVID-19. In addition, there's a lot of people who have been accelerated now into the cloud, meaning, man, maybe they're thinking they were going to do it next year or they were going to do it at the end of this year. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, we need to do it now. So this is very pertinent. And Wade, can you talk through this slide?
Sure. So when we were putting together this, and Jeff brought up, hey, let's make this tangible to today. This comes from an article Microsoft put out last month, analyzing kind of what happened with the cyber security world out there once COVID-19 hit. And this is a little bit of a busy slide, but you can see the peaks. You can see the yellow bar and the blue bar, and that's really around the time that CDC and the World Health Organization classified COVID-19 as a name, and a lot of activities were going on, and we were all getting, starting to have our stay-at-home orders. The number of attacks just took off, which is pretty normal in the security space.
What type of attacks were they talking about seeing? What kind of things did we see?
Yeah, and these range from the typical attack that we see all the time, which is the fake email, right? I'm a Nigerian prince, I got $25 million for you. Here's an email you need to sign up for this now because you've been exposed because you were at a restaurant last week. So all these fake emails, fake attacks. I know for myself, I was getting a lot of text messages and phone calls that were completely fake, and that horrible recording that you just know is not real. And then there were the normal attacks of, knocking on people's doors, seeing if their security at their data centers or their cars or whatever, if your doors aren't locked and your windows aren't shut. And then using that as an analogy to get into the technology space, a lot of attacks. So these nefarious people and people trying to make money saw a huge opportunity to exploit people when they're their most vulnerable, which is what hackers do. And you can really see that in the attacks there in the middle of the slide, and towards the end of the slide there as more things occurred in our industry and in the COVID-19 world. This attack vectors just continue to increase. So we're expecting to see this to continue throughout the rest of this year as these attackers are really trying to prey on all of us. We make more mistakes when we're stressed. We're all under stress right now because of COVID-19. We still have to watch our backs because people are out there trying to take advantage of a vulnerable situation.
Yeah, with everyone moving to cloud technologies, Azure in particular, Office 365, this is always a concern. The fortunate part is all of this has come a long ways. And as we get into the presentation here, you'll see just how much, in a sense, how much safer we can be working with a company like Microsoft that puts millions or billions of dollars into the security level to help us all out. So let's go ahead and get into some of our questions, Wade. First question, and this is one of our prepared ones, is how do you use multi-layered built-in security controls and unique threat intelligence from Azure? So I'm going to let you take that, Wade, and I'm going to go ahead and flip through a slide here for you.
Perfect. Thank you for that. Well, I'm going to start kind of high level, get to the nitty gritty in a little bit here, just after a few slides here. But the high level, it's like anything in life, you need a good foundation. From a foundation for the Microsoft Cloud, you need Azure, Office 365, Dynamics 365. Microsoft has created this cloud adoption framework. And it's a framework of best practices, proven solutions that work well to help you design, implement, manage, optimize your environment. And it talks about things that we're all very used to: firewalls, VPNs, securing the devices, and then gets into some of the newer features. And we're going to get on some of those newer features later here on the slide deck. But I wanted to point this out at the beginning because, as with anything in life, you've got a strong foundation, you increase your optimization, you increase your security, you increase your compliance. So if you haven't seen the cloud adoption framework, Microsoft hasn't talked about it too much until recently. Take a look at it. There's going to be a link here later in the slide deck that hits on it. It's a boring read, but it's good to at least know where it is, and you can look at it and go to the place, and it'll have some best practices for the various Azure workloads, various Azure services, user accounts, and the list goes on. So I wanted to bring this up at the beginning of the slide deck before we get into the fun stuff, that it's really important to make sure we build a strong foundation, and this best practice framework has been put together for Microsoft, and they deemed or named it the Cloud Adoption Framework.
Okay.
And then next, I wanted to also bring up again another high level, kind of boring, dry stuff. Is a white paper for Microsoft on security best practices for Azure solutions. Put this link here in this slide. It's also at the end of the slide deck. I've read through it. It's very similar to the Cloud Adoption Framework. Cloud Adoption Framework is more for the entire aspect of the Microsoft Cloud. And then this article really dives into what are the security best practices for Azure solutions. It's important to note here at Big Green IT, we use both the Cloud Adoption Framework and the security best practices for ourselves, because we're 100% using the Microsoft Cloud for Azure and Office 365 and Dynamics 365, in addition to some on-premise solutions we have. And then we follow these security best practices to ensure that we do security right. And as a Microsoft Gold partner and a managed partner, where we have Microsoft overseeing us, we actually have to adhere to very strict security policies that Microsoft has put in place for partners like us.
Wade, I don't know if this is for later in the presentation or not, but do you mention anything about the Microsoft Trust Center as far as a reference to a lot of the things? Maybe that comes under.
We'll hit that. There's a slide later on where I mentioned Trust Center. And Trust Center is a website for Microsoft that contains all of their security and compliance and best practices solutions. So all of us at our company, we go to that site a lot, and then I'll send that link out to customers as well, saying, hey, if you're looking to learn on your own, here's some great things from the Microsoft Trust Center on their security postures, on their compliance postures, so on and so forth.
It's also a wealth of if people are having to adhere to certain compliances, HIPAA, some of the ones
Right.
you mentioned earlier. I know you'll go into that when we do the compliance section or that question. However, it's really a depth of knowledge, like a library. I mean, it has documentation that's actually built specifically for someone to make their own and utilize that for audits or for other compliance purposes.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And in your Microsoft 365 Admin Center, it's kind of hidden, but you have access to a lot of those documents as well. And for example, we've got a lot of healthcare customers, and they have to have a BAA, Business Associate Agreement, which is required by HIPAA. And the BAA for Microsoft is actually at the Trust Center. And it's a document we use when we have to have a BAA with our customers, is we have to have that BAA from Microsoft as well. So all of that is at the Microsoft Trust Center.
Perfect. I think we can go to the next question. Let's do this. Okay. So next question is, Wade, what are my Azure Secure Score and regulatory compliance recommendations? I know Secure Score is something we talk about a lot, both on the Azure side of the world, the 365 of the world, and well, 365 runs on Azure, so it's all related together here.
Yep.
Go ahead.
And this is the fun part, now getting into the nitty gritty. This is kind of like a click-through demo. And what we're showing here is Azure Secure Score, which is relatively new. If you've used Office 365 / Microsoft 365, it's going through rebranding again, and you've used the Microsoft 365 Secure Score in the past, this is very similar. And as you can see here, I've got a Secure Score set up from a demo Office 365 tenant. I'm sorry, a demo Azure tenant. And this is part of and included in the free version of Azure Security Center. So as you can see here in the upper left is Security Center. I'm at the main screen, and we've got a Secure Score of 39%. What does that mean? It's a qualitative score, just assessing some things based on Microsoft best practices. So when I mentioned Cloud Adoption Framework and the security white paper, like I said, it's for somebody like me who likes to geek out, it's a fun read, but it is dry. This is actually more fun because all of those best practices that are published by Microsoft are actually integrated for free into the Azure Security Center. And if you're running Azure today, you actually have access to this, and you can see what your secure score is, which is very interesting, right? I've got a secure score in this demo tenant of 39%. And in the middle there, I've got a regulatory compliance score, and then some recommended actions. So it's really nice in the fact that it's telling you what to do. And so basically it's kind of like the easy button. You're just going to kind of click through some of this stuff. We're going to go through this real quick here. So you see what happens when you click on something and where it takes you. So Jeff, if you want to go to the next slide, please. Now we've got our recommendations, and in here, recommendations that I've listed is it shows that same screen, and we just kind of drilled into this particular 39%. And I took a screenshot of this, and you see here 2 recommendations. There's more. That list goes down. I couldn't fit it all on the slide here, but this list goes down and tells you, hey, here's what we recommend. No surprise, whether it's Azure, Office 365, any other solution out there, one of the highest recommendations is turning on multi-factor authentication, which, as we all know, is logging in with your password and then getting like a message to your phone here, 6-digit code, or I use the Microsoft Authenticator app. And then you have that second form. Multi-factor is more than one form. So you have a second form of authentication. And no surprise, that's recommended up here as high as one of the highest things to do. And one of the best ways to increase your secure score, whether it's Office 365 or Azure, is to turn on multi-factor authentication, especially for any of your global admins and your executives, people who are the highest risk of getting those phishing attacks, admins who have access to everything, really want to enable multi-factor authentication. And then Jeff, if you want to go to the next slide.
Yeah, I was going to say too, this reminds me just the other day of looking at my FICO score, and they tell me what I need to do to increase it by certain percentage points. That's, right. I like that at the bottom. And I will just reiterate that the MFA, it's interesting. We even just had a client a week or so ago that thought, oh, we've got MFA, yet we still had this issue that came up, and we actually looked through their tenant and they did not have it. So there are some things that to look at in the low-hanging fruit. If I know Ryan, when he does some of these presentations, he says there's one thing, that's one of our engineers, by the way, he'd say if there's just one thing that I can get everybody to do at the end of this webinar, at the end of this lunch and learn, is enable MFA for users. So yeah, go to the next slide.
And yeah, the next slide talks about it, and to what Jeff was talking about with Ryan, or one of our engineers, 81% of all types of attacks, there's this stat out there, I don't have it in this slide, I do it in an Office 365 presentation. 81% of attacks, like phishing attacks, are stopped by multi-factor authentication. Because the number one way people try to hack into your environment is to get your user ID, which is almost always your email address, and your password. And so they're trying to do that with those fake emails that look like Apple iTunes or COVID-19 stuff. So really, if we do nothing else in this world, if we can turn on MFA, we're going to secure things a lot for us. And then as it relates to this, kind of the easy button that we're doing here with Secure Score, so for where it showed to do MFA, I just expanded what this clicking on it did. It actually tells you exactly what to do and where to go. So it's so nice and so easy that your Secure Score through Azure Security Center takes you to this document right here. And then some of the hyperlinks up there near the top will take you to some Microsoft documents and explain what multi-factor authentication is, and then how to turn it on. And it's great that you got this included in your environment. And like Jeff brought up with your FICO score, I use Credit Karma, and I'm on Credit Karma, I don't know, once a week or something like that. And it's always telling me, you know, do this, try that. And so it's nice that I manage my credit score. And when Microsoft first released Secure Score a few years ago for Office 365, they were comparing it to your FICO score, saying, hey, it's kind of similar. Follow these recommendations, and you're going to increase your security score, your compliance score, therefore making you a stronger organization. And I just wanted to show this link as an example of where it takes you and how easy it is. Jeff, you want to go to the next slide, please? And now this is another part of Security Center, the same thing we were looking at before. And what I wanted to draw here is an improvement that has recently occurred in the Secure Score is this little blue button, the quick fix button that's highlighted in red there. This actually is an easy button. It actually takes you directly to the place where they configure this. So it's nice that they're adding these features in here that have been in the Microsoft 365 Secure Score, are now coming into Azure Secure Score, thus making it easier for you to literally click on that blue box and then just follow the steps to do this recommendation. So very nice that this is it's in your Azure tenant and it's free, and all you have to do is follow these steps and you make yourself more secure. And again, these are the things we do for our customers on a routine basis. Next slide. Yep. And now back to Secure Score here. This is, I think, this shouldn't be so hard to find in Secure Score. It's pretty easy on the left there. I highlighted called networking. But as we all know, sometimes we're asked, like, what do you have in Azure? What's there? What's your network map? And literally speaking, in Secure Score is this link here, and we've highlighted in yellow, where you can get your map of your Azure resources all at a one-click process. So Jeff, you want to go to the next slide? And for this demo tenant here, there's some resources that we've stood up in here. Here is literally a map of the network resources in Azure. And you can export this, you can put it into Excel. There's so many things you can do with it. I wanted to bring it out because I'm learning that this is a very not well-known feature in Azure, and yet when we get a new client, let's say a new Azure client, we'll ask them, hey, what do you have in Azure? Do you have a network map? And 9 times out of 10, it's like, no, let me go work on that. And we tell them, nope, don't work on it. Let's go to a security center and then let's do this, and then we'll have that information in a very short time frame. So this is a kudos to Microsoft for putting this into Secure Score. It's a great feature that lets us know, hey, what are the resources I have? Because I need to know what to secure, and I need to know my resources. So this little map here is a great feature of Azure Secure Score.
I like that.
Yeah. Next slide, please. And now back to Secure Score here. I also wanted to show on the left here, regulatory compliance. I'm going to get to some compliance things a little bit later in the presentation, but I wanted to bring it up here at the beginning because, again, we're at the main screen of Secure Score. Oh, now we're at Azure Advisor, but we're at, if you can go back one.
Yeah, I'll try.
No, okay.
There you go.
Then there's that regulatory compliance section, which is highlighted in yellow and is in the middle top there. That'll get you some regulatory compliance features. And again, same thing, tells you what to do, what the recommendations are, what the next steps are, and increases your compliance posture, your compliance score. And again, I'll get to this a little bit later in the presentation as well, a little deeper dive into it. And now we can go to Azure Advisor, the next slide. Azure Advisor is, to me, one of the best tools in Azure. It takes, as you can see here, it does some cost optimization for you, some security, reliability, operational excellence, and performance. And the security piece that we're talking about today, those security results are actually within Azure Advisor. Azure Advisor works with Security Center and your Secure Score to make recommendations and give advisement. Here's what Microsoft is recommending you use to improve in these 5 areas of your business. So I'm not going to do a deep dive into Azure Advisor right now. We touched on it in some previous webinars, But I wanted to bring it up to show that SecureScore is integrated with Azure Advisor. And if you haven't used Azure Advisor, after this presentation, go check it out. All the recommendations it makes above and beyond just the security component. And since we've talked about a lot of these pieces in some of our previous webinars in this webinar series, I wanted to tie it all together here and put this little plug in for Azure Advisor as, hey, if you even forget what SecureScore is called or where it is, run Azure Advisor, and then boom, in the middle there, your top, you've got to click in and click through to your security component. So that's it for this one. So we can go to.
Yeah, I know we put some breaks in here for participant questions, but I'm also keeping an eye on the clock. So I think that we'll kind of save these to the end. I've seen a couple that we've answered along the way anyway. So let's, I think let's just go ahead to the next question.
Perfect. Perfect.
So Wade, can Azure Security Center extend security management to on-premise systems and other public clouds?
Yeah, and this is in here again because the answer is yes, which is not historical for Microsoft. It plays so nice with others in the sandbox, but a few years ago, 5-6 years ago, when Satya took over, a lot of things did change for Microsoft. And yes, you can now use Security Center. It's no longer the free version. This is the paid version, but you can use Security Center to manage your non-Azure systems, either at your office, in your data center, at a competitive cloud like AWS. You can actually extend Azure Security Center components and these recommendations and everything else that we talked about. You can extend them to your non-Azure systems. And as we're seeing here in this click through and screenshot, like it was for SecureScore, it's a few clicks. You have to install an agent on the system, so on and so forth. But you could get a better security view, a more holistic view of your environment, because like most of us, we might not have all of our systems in Azure. We might still have some things in a data center, co-location facility, or in our office, or in another cloud. And now you can extend Azure Security Center with the paid version to apply these security recommendations and configurations to non-Azure systems. And on the next slide, you'll also see that for things that you may have deployed from a security standpoint from Azure Marketplace, Security Center can extend to these ones as well. So these are not Microsoft solutions, these are solutions from other vendors, and Microsoft has been onboarding a number of these marketplace solutions into Azure Security Center. So even if you're using an Azure system, but it's a non-Microsoft system, Microsoft is expanding the reach of Security Center for these non-Microsoft systems in Azure. So really wanted to bring this up because this to me is a wonderful, almost holy grail-ish approach to security, of securing my entire organization, regardless of what infrastructure it's on, public cloud, data center, other private cloud. You can extend Security Center to those other, your other resources as well. And I think we can go.
Yeah, same thing. I'm going to, once again,
the next slide.
Yep, I'm kind of taking a look at the clock off to the side here while we're doing this, and I'm going to keep this kind of moving forward. So please, I'd still encourage anybody to ask any questions. We'll save those to the end. We do have kind of a Q&A at that point as well. So I'm going to go ahead to the next slide.
Perfect.
And another question, this is where maybe I jumped the gun a little bit, but we get, this is a question we get very often, because even the people who answered the poll here, and that 75 or more % of the participants here are asking about compliance and general capabilities. So I'll ask the question as it's written, and then I'll let you answer it there, Wade. How can I ensure compliance using the cloud governance capabilities that are built into Azure?
Thank you for that, and thanks everybody for answering that survey earlier on. And like we said, 75% of the attendees said, yeah, I do have to deal with some compliance regulations. This is a slide we show at a lot of our Azure and Office 365 presentations, and the links are on the bottom here. And this will take you to the Trust Center, as Jeff mentioned, and to the Azure compliance section. And listing here a lot of the compliance regulations that Microsoft has put into their Azure and Office 365 environments. We've already hit on HIPAA, We've hit on GDPR, move my thumb over. We've hit on some other ones. There's also, if you're a government organization, there's FedRAMP. If you have to comply with some password policies that are in the NIST set of regulations there and here. And as we're going to get in a little bit deeper in some of these slides, we're going to show a little bit more detail on this. But just know that Microsoft, not only is it the most trusted cloud from a security standpoint, it's the most compliance affiliated cloud. It has more compliance controls and regulations applied to it than any other public cloud. Microsoft takes security and compliance very seriously. And this is just a picture, a snapshot of some of the compliance regulations and controls that the public Microsoft's cloud adheres to.
Yeah, I like this slide, Wade, because even though we may have just one area, someone might have just HIPAA, but to see the breadth of the security, even if we have no compliance requirements within the particular industry, just knowing that the platform you're going to use has all of these elements to it. That to me gives you that warm fuzzy, right? That feeling like, okay, wow, if this is good enough for the JEDI contract for the Department of Defense, or if it's good enough for that, it might work for my, my local business that I have as well. So even though all of these don't apply to everyone, the fact that they exist to me is overwhelming as to the level of security that we can expect from Microsoft and from Azure.
Yeah, I agree. And then back to the secure score. Here's that similar screenshot I had showed earlier. Here's one of the aspects of regulatory compliance. So this was from earlier where you have your compliance score in essence, and you've got some compliance regulations that are showed here or displayed here by Security Center. And just like we did click through before, you click on these, it makes recommendations on what to do. No surprise, there's a lot of overlap between security and compliance. So things like MFA and checking your audit logs, and the list goes on, are going to be listed in here as well. And so in essence, increasing your security posture increases your compliance posture as well. And then this has that automatic scoring that's applied to your environment. And it's important to know that these scores run about once a day. So if you change something and you improve, like you turn on multi-factor authentication for everybody, you'll have to wait for the next day oftentimes for that score to increase. But then you'll see that score increase in all of the areas that need that particular control or that setting configured. And then Jeff, if you go to the next slide, I wanted to show also what Microsoft calls the compliance manager. And here in this compliance manager snapshot, this is a deeper tool that shows what your compliance score is based on a few of these compliance regulations here. So we've got GDPR, some NIST standards, HIPAA, the list goes on. And this applies to your Office 365 environment or your Azure environment. And then again, this would be a click through as well, or you would click on this, complete these steps, and then as you complete these steps, your score, which is kind of below the green circle there, your score starts to improve. And as you can see, Microsoft's always perfect. Their score is always going to be that blue bar at 100 because they do all of the physical controls, regulatory stuff, all the things that they have to do with their data centers. And so they have their score. And then as you increase your controls and the settings you do, your score will go up as well. And so I wanted to put Compliance Manager in here because it's a great tool to, again, easy button, just follow the steps to increase your compliance. And so that's a real critical part of what we do for a lot of our customers that have compliance regulations is we'll take them through the Azure compliance aspect and Compliance Manager to show them the scores and then show them, hey, this is what Microsoft recommends. You don't have to do it right away. You can choose what you want to do, but you've got a list of actions now, and then we can help get these actions executed so that your security score, security posture, your compliance score, compliance posture starts to increase. And then after this, I think we're at the kind of the next steps slide, Jeff.
Okay. Yep. Thank you, Wade. That's been excellent. I'll try to turn my camera back on here. So next steps, basically, this is kind of towards our wrap up here. Look, everybody has their own journey to the Azure Cloud, whether that is starting with 365, which runs in Azure, and now we're going to try to do, we're doing some test and dev, we're doing some backup, and actually moving to full production. But There are two things that we're offering. One is just a free 30-minute live discussion with either Mike, who's not on this particular one, or Wade, who are subject matter experts. And it could be through anything. You just want to ask questions. It could be even on the secure score, or how to really get to, or have one of our guys walk through that, have Wade walk through that with you on setting that up. So free 30 minutes type of thing. We also do an Azure migration assessment where we run the Azure calculator with you and for you. If you're looking at moving to Azure or moving additional workloads to Azure, wherever you might be in that journey. And on the screen there, we have you'll get these slides again, some links of who to reach out to set something like that up. Some additional resources. This is all of those links, things that we've talked about between Security Center, Advisor, Compliance, the Microsoft Trust Center, and basically everything you've seen today we put together in one slide that you can connect the links to. So this will be kind of our wrap-up portion of it. On the right-hand side of this particular slide, once again, here's how to reach out to some of the folks here. For those of you that we do have our COVID relief program, which everyone has something, which I'm glad, and there's a lot of people pitching in to, make this the best we can for businesses and people and so forth. And we have actually for Office 365, we have a 1 month kind of free if you either start a new subscription with us or move a subscription from somewhere else. You'll get 1 month of free Office 365 invoicing. So, and then the other things that we talked about, Premier support, data center optimization, and so forth. So I'm looking for questions. And Wade, unfortunately, I cannot see. There was one of them that you mentioned earlier. Maybe you could do that question. We'll answer that. If anybody has others, we'll answer those, and then we'll conclude today's webinar.
The first question I have is how much is Azure Security Center for your non-Azure systems? So remember, I talked it could be extended to non-Azure systems, so systems not in Azure but in your data center or a competing public cloud. So it's basically priced on like a virtual machine or an app service or a database at about $15 per month for each virtual machine database. So what we recommend is, try it on a few of them, and it's 30 days free. So you can turn on this for your system you've got in your data center or at a competing public cloud. Turn it on for 30 days, see if you like it, making those recommendations. If so, then it's about $15 a month. There's also lower prices for like IoT devices and some other things. So any other questions we can sync up afterwards the presentation, but that's roughly the prices. It's basically a per instance price.
All right, I think this is a good place to maybe conclude this. I want to encourage everyone to, if you have other questions, to reach out to us. If there's something that was specific to your business that maybe you didn't want to ask on the air, so to speak. I definitely understand that, but we'll provide as much information and help as we can. And once again, if you send us an email on this and ask for one of our, there it is, got the frog on somewhere there. We'll be sure and send it out to you. So everybody be safe, be healthy. Have any questions, reach out to us, and have a great rest of the day. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Wade.
Thanks, Jeff.